It's quickly becoming a tradition at Legion Gaming to cover Kickstarter games, but when titles like WOLCEN, formerly Umbra, receive nearly $500,000, it's hard not to pay attention. Hello all, it's Codiak here, one half of the team behind Legion Gaming, and today I'll take you to the front lines for my first impression on WOLCEN, Lords of Mayhem. Before we begin, I want to share a bit about how Legion Gaming will be covering WOLCEN. My better half, Livid, the true hardcore gamer of the channel, will be tackling endgame content and build guides, while I focus primarily on the more casual, story-driven side of the game. While not an ARPG expert, my time with WOLCEN Lords of Mayhem has been incredibly satisfying. I grew up with Baldur's Gate, Neverwinter Nights, and of course Diablo, but WOLCEN really does check all of the boxes that makes this game feel like a modern title. WOLCEN is incredibly ambitious, but on the surface, you wouldn't get that experience. Only after diving into the forums and checking out the original Kickstarter was I starting to form a complete picture of what WOLCEN actually could be, an attempt to push the ARPG genre to the next level and create a near MMO type experience that blurs the line between what players expect and what they never knew they wanted. Right off the bat, WOLCEN feels familiar, yet different all at the same time. You pick a starter weapon which determines your starting ability, but that's where the restrictions end. Within an hour of playing the game, you'll be able to choose your own progression path. If you're a fan of Path of Exile, 1, you're probably not watching a first impressions video, and 2, you probably are comfortable with the sprawling radial progression system that clearly is inspired from the game. But there's a twist. WOLCEN's progression is based on multiple concentric circles, which the player can rotate to create new combinations of passive skills. I found the system daunting at first, but overall rather enjoyable. It's easy enough to pick out the major upgrades that really define your playstyle and choose which ones I wanted to work towards. As someone that's playing a bruiser type character this go around, it was clear I would follow the soldier path, which was largely rooted in melee and health enhancements. For better or for worse, the game also lets you hit reset on anything, your character stats or your passives. But don't worry, we'll be covering each of those systems in future videos. We won't bore you with that minutia quite yet. From the moment I fired up WOLCEN, I knew I was in a story, a real epic. To be completely honest, the game combines many of the systems that I personally enjoy when it comes to video game narrative. An overdramatic and fantastic plot, fully voiced cutscenes, and fully voiced character interactions. To be frank, I just don't like reading walls of text, and no matter how good the story is, I'm just never going to resonate with it. Is WOLCEN a marvel of cinematic beauty? No, it isn't, but an interesting origin story coupled with some religious fanaticism never really hurt anyone, and it's definitely not hurting WOLCEN. The thing about the story is that once again, it feels familiar, but still different. Instead of fighting ghouls and goatmen, you're fighting apparitions and flayers. It's a slight variation on themes that we know work, and it's a common thread throughout much of the game. Now, putting all that aside, the thing I really wanted to highlight is WOLCEN's combat, which blends seamlessly into the classless nature of the game. Now, full transparency, I don't like classless games, but WOLCEN may be changing my mind, and it comes down to, as it always does, the systems. You can equip any weapon you want, swords, bows, guns, stabs, etc., but only certain skills will work with those weapons equipped, and it's just a few clicks to reorganize and retool. Players can collect or purchase Enaraks, which unlock new abilities. Using those abilities and having them on your active toolbar levels them up, which gives you access to a number of skill modifiers. The team has been very clear that more Enaraks will be added to the game and on a frequent basis, but at just around 10 hours into WOLCEN, I'm finding a satisfying mix of abilities make my combat experience rather enjoyable. That being said, if I want to move on to a different style of playing, it's a matter of a few clicks and all of a sudden I'm an archer or a mage. There's a lot to unpack here, which is why WOLCEN is the perfect type of game for build guides. And like I said, we'll be covering that, but for the time being, know this. Your choices are seemingly endless, and you don't have to fight through a slog of menus to really get to the playstyle you want. Is there a learning curve? Sure, but the game does a really spectacular job of making it clear that how you play is up to you. Now, it can't be all sunshine and rainbows, and WOLCEN isn't without its faults. First is the obvious, that the game was clearly not ready for multiplayer launch, with the online servers being down for multiple hours at a time. This is to be expected, but it doesn't help the game's cause, especially when you're pushing downtimes of around 24 hours. By the time you watch this, hopefully those issues will be ironed out, but it's not a good look. Additionally, there are some technical issues that have bogged down the game, including completely resetting characters. It's a terrible look and leaves a bad taste in people's mouths, and with such a short window to make or break a title, it's hurting WOLCEN's future. Finally, and I alluded to this before, the story isn't anything to write home about. It feels like something lifted right out of the Warhammer universe, and while that's not necessarily a bad thing, the familiarities are far too similar to not point out. We've got some issues to work through, there is no doubt about that, but at its core, Wolcen is there, a diamond in the rough, just waiting to be tapped. It could truly be the evolution of the ARPG genre, and while I never like to say it's a game killer, other, more prominent titles should take notice of the things that Wolcen is doing right. Guys, like I mentioned, we'll be covering Wolcen a lot more in the future from both a casual and hardcore perspective, so let us know what type of content you'd like to see by leaving us a note in the comment section below. Also, we invite you to join Legion Gaming on Discord. Our server combines over 2,000 people across dozens of games with an emphasis on fostering a positive, inclusive community. We hope you'll check back later for some more Wolcen videos, but for now, my name is Codiak, and from everyone here at Legion Gaming, thanks for watching, and play on.